Alright guys, in this video, I'll be utterly destroying the illegal immigration argument that so many people cling to because they think breaking the law is okay, and they try to justify it by cherry-picking Bible verses. Well, today we're actually going to be going over all that, and we're going to be saying what's actually true, what God actually wanted for the nation of Israel, and how it applies to today, and whether or not illegal immigration is wrong or not. As always, thank you guys for watching, and if you really don't care about the biblical aspect of this issue, you can skip to this point in the video. So first we have to establish that illegal immigration is actually a sin. We're going to start off with 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2, 13 through 15. Submit yourself for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether to the emperor as the supreme authority or to the governors, who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. For it is God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. Hebrews 13 verse 17. Obey your leaders and submit to them, for they keep watch over your souls and will give an account for their work. Let them do this with joy and not with complaints, for this would be no advantage for you. Romans 13, 1 through 7. Let everyone be subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. So these verses point out the fact that God wants us to obey our leaders, regardless of what country we're living in, and to respect the rules established by our government. Nothing in the Bible says it's wrong for a nation to enforce its own immigration policy. Here in America, illegally entering the country is a violation of federal immigration law under Title 8 of U.S. Code 1325. Therefore, entering the country illegally is a sin. This is also the way it has been for a very, very long time, and every single politician, whether it be Republican or Democrat, has been in full support of this issue because they know it destroys our way of life. As Christians, we do have the right to protest and combat a tyrannical government or oppressor, but I'll be going over everything about that in a separate video. Acts 22, 25 through 29. When they had stretched him out for the lash, Paul said to the centurion, standing nearby, "Is it legal for you to lash a man who is a Roman citizen without a proper trial?" When the centurion heard this, he went to the commanding officer and reported it, saying, "What are you about to do? For this man is a Roman citizen." So the commanding officer came and asked Paul, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" He replied, "Yes." The commanding officer answered, "I acquired this citizenship with a large sum of money." "But I was even born a citizen," Paul replied. Then those who were about to interrogate him stayed away from him, and the commanding officer was frightened when he realized that Paul was a Roman citizen and that he had tied him up. So as we can see here, even in ancient Rome, they treated their citizens differently. Citizenship was sought after by the people of that time, and Rome had laws against illegal immigration and heavily defended its borders. This is a common reoccurrence all throughout the Bible. Acts 17:26. And he was made from one blood, every nation of men, to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. Exodus 34:24. For I will drive out the nations before you and enlarge your borders, and no one will covet your land when you go up 3 times a year to appear before the Lord your God. Psalms 122 verse 7. May there be peace within your walls and prosperity inside your fortresses. Deuteronomy 19, 8 through 9. If the Lord your God enlarges your territory, as he has promised, on oath to your ancestors, and gives you the whole land he promised them, because you carefully follow all these laws I command you today, to love the Lord your God, and to walk always in obedience to him, Then you are to set aside 3 more cities. Deuteronomy 12 verse 20. When the Lord your God expands your territory as he has promised, and you crave meat and say, I want to eat meat, you may eat it whenever you want. Deuteronomy 4 verse 40. Keep his statutes and commandments, which I am giving to you today, so that you and your children after you may prosper, and that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all of time. 1 John verses 3 and 4. Everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. In a surprising yet often ignored verse in the Bible, God told the Israelites to close Israel's borders, except for those who were willing to live according to their faith and cultural values. God wanted the Israelites to protect their identity, their faith, and their culture, and their way of life, because the promise of Abraham was woven into the revelations of ancient Israel. To secede their borders was to secede God's promise. Exodus 23:31 through 33. I will establish your borders. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. Hosea 7:8 and 9. Israel has mixed himself among the peoples. Israel is a cake unturned. Aliens have devoured his strength, but he does not know it. Yes, gray hairs are here and there on him, yet he does not know it. Nehemiah 13 verse 3. When they heard the law, they excluded all foreigners from Israel. So as we can clearly see many times throughout the Bible, having walls and gates and borders is seen as a very good thing. God tells the Israelites to defend their borders. Migrants had to rebuke their gods and conform to Israel's culture, laws, and beliefs to enter, meaning they had strict immigration policies. Citizenship was earned, not given or stolen or taken for granted. And it's the same way today as it's always been. In fact, no country around the world has completely open borders to this day, and some countries even defend their borders more stricter than America. Okay, so now that we've unequivocally proven that illegal immigration is a sin, we're going to go over some of the most common misconceptions that I see on the internet today.
Do you think that Jesus Christ would want ICE to raid churches and hospitals and schools? Do you think that he would support children being separated from their families? Do you think that he would turn asylum seekers away at the border? Because if you think that any of this is somehow godly, I urge you to listen to the countless verses that tell us to accept the foreigner, to not mistreat the oppressed, and to love thy neighbor, because that is our greatest commandment. And might I remind you that the only thing separating you and a refugee is quite literally where you were born, which you had no control over, mind you. And it's very easy to cast judgment from the comfort of your own home when you have no idea what these people have been through. It's very easy to be bigoted towards people when you have never walked in their shoes. So maybe let's take a look inward and ask ourselves, is this what Jesus would want? Am I acting how Jesus would? Am I being of service to my fellow human beings? Or am I supporting people and policies who enact harm and violence against God's children? And I don't know what version of Jesus you all are subscribing to, but the one that I believe in would never stand for that.
Exodus 22:21. You shall not wrong or oppress an immigrant. Leviticus 19:33 through 34. The immigrant who resides with you shall be to you as the citizens among you. Deuteronomy 27:19. Cursed be anyone who deprives the immigrant of justice. Jeremiah 22 verse 3. Do no wrong or violence to the immigrant. And Matthew 25. When you welcome the stranger, you welcome me. Okay, so while I do agree with all of these verses, they're completely taken out of context by Christians that don't understand the real meaning behind the verses. There is a very important difference to understand between a legal and an illegal immigrant. These verses are clearly speaking about legal immigrants. Otherwise, it would go against all of God's previous commandments for Israel.
When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall do him no wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. There are two Hebrew words for the foreigner. Now the reality is that this word GWR in the Hebrew, what it means is it's often translated in whatever English text you have as alien or stranger. But what it means is a citizen. So this is a legal immigrant who had done whatever Israel required in order to gain full citizenship. And that's precisely what Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 through 34 is talking about when it says, treat him kindly and extend to him all the same benefits that you have. So ultimately, what God is advocating for among his people, Israel, under the Old Covenant, is that they extend the same rights and privileges to legal citizens among them, regardless of their origins.
So in the end, while we should never do anything to promote or enable or excuse illegal immigration, we should also do everything we can to demonstrate the love of Jesus Christ to the immigrants themselves, while also not promoting, aiding, or abetting the act of illegally entering the country. Another completely false idea that Christians like to portray is that Jesus Christ himself was an illegal immigrant.
He's here right now. Would you let him in?
As long as he went through the proper, as long as
he came here legally. As long as Jesus Christ came to this country legally, we would let him in.
In Mark chapter 12, people asked Jesus whether or not we should pay taxes, and Jesus said, "Why are you testing me? Bring me a denarius to look at." And they brought one, and he said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" And they said to him, "Caesar's." And Jesus said to them, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." And Romans chapter 13 says, "Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist have been appointed by God." The fact is, if a perfect, sinless man wanted to enter the United States, he would do so legally, because a perfect man would obey this commandment from the scriptures. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. The simple fact is, every human should be submitting to the government, no matter what the government tells you to do, unless the government commands you to do something evil. And no, not evil according to you, but according to God. And the fact is, God never commanded you to enter a country illegally.
Debunking unbiblical immigration claims. Jesus was not an illegal immigrant. His family fled from Bethlehem to Egypt because King Herod wanted to kill all of the boys. He wanted to kill Jesus. But Egypt and Bethlehem were both under the Roman Empire jurisdiction. So it's like Jesus going from California to Texas. He was still within the same country. So to say that Jesus was an illegal immigrant would imply that Jesus broke the law. And according to Romans 13 and other passages, breaking the law of a country is a sin, does go against God's word. So that would imply that God is not perfect when he lived a perfect and holy life, and that's why he was able to die on the cross for us. So no, Jesus was not an illegal immigrant. If anything, you can maybe loosely say he was some sort of refugee, but again, this is California to Texas. He was fleeing an unjust leader within the same region under the Roman Empire.
So that concludes the biblical aspect of this argument, guys. If you are a Christian, you cannot support illegal immigration because it is breaking the law. So now we're going to move on to the actual facts, the statistics, and other moral arguments. So one thing that really makes me question my sanity is most of these people, if not all of them on the left, had no problem with Barack Obama doing the same exact thing Trump is doing now, deporting people that do not belong here. One of the most popular presidents in the Democratic Party, and he had no opposition. And now that Trump is in office, everyone is suddenly supporting breaking the law.
Do you guys remember Obama saying this?
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
And the vast majority of Americans were in favor of this because the border, they wanted to make sure it was under control and immigration and all that. But someone else mentioned yesterday there was no ICE raids during Trump's first time as president because the border was under control. But the border's under control for 4 years, 5 years almost. Then ICE raids happen and the laws are enforced and people are pissed off about that.
It's not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. It's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration. But they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take. All right?
The amount of hypocrisy here is insane. I bet you didn't know that America is one of the worst countries in the world for human trafficking, right? Yeah, crazy. And this is all because of illegal immigration.
In the big speech yesterday and the president's first extensive remarks about his agenda. But from what I just told you, what are your thoughts?
Well, look, this is another example of an illegal alien killing American citizens. It's almost a daily occurrence now. You know, because historic number of criminal aliens walking the streets, because of this administration's policy in sanctuary jurisdictions and lacks immigration enforcement. ICE has their hands tied. Secretary Mayorkas have given them priorities that they can't even go arrest an illegal alien anymore unless he's convicted of a serious crime. Then maybe they can arrest him. So this is on this administration.
We certainly have received reports of children being trafficked, even those as to whom we know where they are. That is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking. But there are children who are reunited with a parent here in the United States or a legal guardian, and they move. And sometimes the government loses track.
So does that explain everything? What should I know about his statement?
It's nothing but lies. Nothing but lies. Border numbers aren't down. They're just putting them through the CBP One app and the CHNV app. You add those programs together, what Border Patrol's catching the gotaways, we're still have historic numbers. They were bragging the other day that ICE has over 247,000 removals, the most in a decade. No, they don't. If you look at the data, 80% of them were Border Patrol apprehensions that ICE just simply put across the border. ICE interior enforcement numbers are historic lows. And as far as the children, another lie. Under his guidance, under his leadership, first of all, it's his policies that caused over 500,000 of children being smuggled in this country, trafficked in this country, and they lost track with 340,000 of them. His lips are moving, he's lying, and he needs to be held accountable. Illegal aliens you release in this country, and that's why we have the crime rate we have today, and that's why, look, you know who's going to fix this whole problem? President Trump's going to fix this issue, because we're going to shut the border down, we're going to have the largest deportation operation this country's ever seen, and we will find over 340,000 children that you lost track of, that you released to unvetted sponsors. Many are in sex trafficking, many are in forced labor. We will rescue those children that you traffic into the United States.
Let me give you some of our statistics just to show you how much this affects us. We have had a 377% increase in the last 2 years for traffic stops involving human smuggling and trafficking. We have had a 461% increase in pursuits involving human smuggling, putting my citizens at risk.
It should not be a left versus right issue. This should not be racism. This should not be anything. It's literally just protecting the nation. We have walls and locks to surround and border our own homes. We have gated communities to border and protect our own neighborhoods. We have armed security to protect our banks, celebrities, politicians. Yet for our own country, there's people who want nothing. It doesn't make sense. How are there politicians advocating for the right to have open borders in the United States, but for themselves, they live behind a 24/7 gated and armed community?
What do they use these for, do you know?
For the fence.
For the fences? Do you have anything illegal inside the vehicle?
Oh, no.
No, anything?
No.
Anything illegal inside the wood here?
No, sir.
Nothing at all? Okay. You gave me consent to search the vehicle and everything inside of it. Morning.
Morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Yourself?
Good. Ready to work?
That's what I'm talking about. Turn around. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. ¿Está todo bien? Sí. Aquí siéntate enseguida, por favor. Estírese los pies.
Hundreds of thousands of innocent women and children are sold into sex slavery every single year, and the numbers are growing. If we can't evaluate who's coming into our country, we cannot verify if these kids actually belong to this family. So they come in and disappear, never to be seen again. This is the kind of stuff that wouldn't happen with tight border security and stricter immigration policies. The issue of illegal immigration is becoming so bad for our country that we are having trouble just finding them a place to live. We are kicking kids out of school, and we are allowing them to access free healthcare. And who pays for all that? Me and you, of course.
Each week, thousands of single adults and families arrive here on buses from border states, and finding housing for everyone has become increasingly difficult. So Mayor Eric Adams is floating an idea, asking private homeowners to share their space.
The mayor of New York is asking you to house these illegal immigrants. And it doesn't stop there. Not only do they want them in your homes, but they're kicking the kids out of school. Kids are having to go to online schooling so that the migrants can be housed at the high schools.
A school had to be shut down, not because there was a snowstorm, not because of maybe of a natural disaster, Pastor, but because they needed room for migrants there in the city. We've been talking more and more about the issue there with the crisis.
How important is it that the border will be going, and all the illegal immigration will be going in reverse pretty soon? What does it mean for the people in Texas who suffered so much?
Beautiful bride of 48 years. I taught fourth grade 27 years, so I breathed, ate, slept education, public education. Why do I say that? Kindergarten through 12. 300,000 illegals came across the Texas border last year in 1 month. If 20% of them were in kindergarten through 12th grade age, that's 60,000 kids. Somebody has to pay to educate. Guess who that somebody is? Yeah. It's the American people. And then fast forward that, John, over to the healthcare situation where they go to these clinics, these county hospital emergency rooms they can't afford to pay. Our great medical personnel are going to take care of them. They're going to have to get paid for their services. The building has to be financed. So medical care is going to go up. Again, guess who's going to pay that? It's Americans. We cannot afford to be the charity for the world.
California has become the first state in the union to give health insurance to illegal immigrants. Under the new policy, all illegal immigrants will qualify for California's version of the federal Medicaid program, Medi-Cal. Previously, those in the country illegally were barred from receiving full coverage, save for emergency and pregnancy-related aid under certain conditions. Now, the move is expected to give around 700,000 illegal immigrants between 26 and 49 eligibility for full coverage.
Illegal immigrants getting full coverage insurance for free. So let's recap real quick. Americans are struggling as it is, but to add to that pile, we're advocating for migrants to come on in willy-nilly. We're going to get you a bus ticket, a plane ticket. We're going to send you to this town. We're going to shut down our public schools. You're going to be housed at the high school. And if not the high school, we're going to tell our citizens to take you in their homes. Cool. And what's crazy to me is, please tell me below if I'm stupid. Comment below if I'm not reading this correctly. But when I'm saying the term and I'm reading the term illegal immigrant, am I tweaking, or is the word illegal in front of immigrant? Like what they're doing is illegal.
Something I will admit I was wrong about is that somehow illegal immigrants do actually pay a small amount of taxes. But wait, hold up. It's not what you think. They do not pay anywhere near enough to cover the cost of them actually being here illegally.
Illegal immigration cost U.S. taxpayers $150.7 billion in 2023, according to a cost study by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or FAIR. FAIR arrived at this number by subtracting the tax revenue paid by illegal aliens, just under $32 billion, from the total negative economic impact of illegal immigration at the federal, state, and local levels of $182 billion. This is not sustainable, obviously.
69% of illegal immigrants in the U.S. have no education beyond high school, and 9% are dropouts or not even enrolled in school. Because of this, illegal immigrants tend to go for very low-paying jobs while also being qualified to receive welfare benefits, making up 59% of illegals taking advantage of American benefits. Illegals receive an estimated $42 billion in federal aid each year, and that's just a rough estimate, not accounting for everything else that makes them a net fiscal drain on our economy. And it's not even that illegals don't want to work. 94% of illegal immigrant households have at least one worker, which is still pretty vague. But the nation's welfare system is designed in such a way that it targets to help low-wage workers, especially with children, and they make full sure to take advantage of that. This is exactly what Trump means when he says they're not sending their best. Maybe that's why Mexico doesn't want their own people back. Elon Musk and his team over at Doge recently exposed that over 2 million illegals worked based off of stolen Social Security numbers and received Social Security benefits from which they were not entitled to in 2024. This is up from the previous years, where in 2022, 590,000 non-citizens received Social Security benefits, and in 2023, 964,000 non-citizens also received Social Security benefits. Imagine working your whole life just to have your Social Security number stolen and for someone else to receive the benefits you worked for your whole life. This is completely and utterly disgusting and unfair in its roots. Jesus would not have stood for this kind of stealing. Matthew 22. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius. And he asked them, Whose image is this, and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. You'll often hear this common talking point from illegal immigrant sympathizers that say, they work the jobs Americans don't want to work. Well, this is 100% true, but not in the way you think it is. Because illegals do not graduate high school, they have to go for the lowest paying, trashiest jobs that nobody else wants to do, and they end up getting taken advantage of by their employers because they use their immigration status to work under the table or make them work for cheaper because they don't have a right to earn as much as a normal American would, because they don't have rights like we do. Native-born Americans are usually smart enough to go for jobs with benefits and decent pay. Meanwhile, illegals literally have to work these jobs because they have no choice. If illegals did have the opportunity to work higher-paying jobs, their net fiscal drain on our economy would likely double, even triple, leaving us in more debt than we already are. This is a really, really stupid argument to bring up, because why would any American want to work 12 hours a day in the produce fields for $5 an hour? That's ridiculous. However, $17 an hour plus benefits, now you're talking. The real truth is that Democrats want slaves that get paid dirt cheap, and this was the perfect way to implement that in the United States. These illegal immigrant workers report having to work in unsafe conditions with very little pay, and are even denied bathroom and water breaks. How can you support illegal immigration after hearing this? It's literally modern-day slavery. If you follow the law and come to America legally, you do not have to be treated like a slave. These illegals are doing this to themselves.
There was this video that went viral of this Asian woman in a taxi, and she's like, if you don't care about families being ripped apart, then maybe you care about being selfish. Don't you know that all these illegal immigrants, and then she goes through this like list of, they're more likely to clean your toilet and cook your food and do construction. And I was just like, Democrats want slaves.
Yeah.
She outright says in this video that these people can't vote. They get low pay. They get no benefits. And we love it. And I'm like, I don't send them home.
It's the same exact thing they did from the beginning. They freed the slaves, and then they've been mad about it ever since.
They're trying to find another way to get it, basically. They're like, bring in illegal immigrants. Joe Biden literally did this. He created probably one of the largest slave classes anywhere in the world. What he did was brings in millions of non-citizens, has the CBP then give them their hearings for their asylum, status, and then drops all the cases, creating de facto permanent residency with no rights. So now you have people who get paid dirt to work low-skilled jobs, no benefits, no recourse, no unions, no OSHA, none of those protections. And that's what the Democrats have been doing. They've been desperate for their slaves back.
You do all the jobs, the dirty jobs, all that kind of stuff. It's for y'all. So that's why I kind of get offended when they say, oh, they do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. It's like, no, you guys don't want to do those jobs. I have no problem doing those jobs.
Rights, they've got no unions, they've got no protections, and they displace the work for American, especially American Gen Z, who would do the job. And here's the best part. People say that Gen Z, they don't want to work because they don't get paid enough. They can't afford a home. Imagine this. Imagine if you got rid of all of the unskilled illegal immigrant labor, and all you had left was Gen Z saying, I want $30 an hour for this job. Guess what you got to pay them?
$30 an hour.
That's right. And that means this is actually what stops the wealth gap. The ultra wealthy's profit margins go down as they start spreading out what they have to try and cover the cost in the bottom, and it creates a balanced economy. But instead, what we have is illegal immigrants come in endlessly. This is the thing that I think a lot of the libertarian anarcho-capitalists don't get. There is a near infinite supply of cheap labor all over the world that we can't compete with. And so the Democrats bring these people in, and then Gen Z is just sitting in their parents' basement.
Exactly. That's the main thing with Gen Z. They're like, okay, what do I do? How do I get into the actual job market? I want to go work at McDonald's. I want to work at Walmart, Home Depot. But the illegal aliens are there. These people are fully grown men with wives and kids. I'm 16 years old. How do I get into the market? And then once I graduate, I have no experience, no skills. What do I do?
Over 76,000 Americans die each year from fentanyl overdose, drugs that come into the U.S. via the southern border.
According to CBP, nearly 13,000 pounds of fentanyl has been seized this past fiscal year. That's 4 times as much as in 2019.
Yeah, so several years ago, we hardly saw any fentanyl at all. Over the past 3-4 years, it's just exponentially gone up. year after year.
We have got to stop demonizing people who want tighter border security. That's one of the things that I think is the most frustrating thing about all of this, is that the southern border and border security for our nation is not really, it should not be a left versus right issue. It's just about protecting and saving America, protecting this country. There are drugs flowing and flowing into our southern border, and it's like, for me saying I want tighter security to protect that, all of a sudden I'm a racist.
Now at 11, new video here revealing a sophisticated cross-border drug tunnel that stretches from Tijuana, Mexico into a warehouse in Otay Mesa, just north of the border.
Like that, personally, I'd love for more resources to be going into finding more of these tunnels and shutting them down. I know it's a long road ahead of us, but I would love more resources at our southern border to be put at ending this drug trafficking.
You might be shocked to hear this, but guess who disagrees with illegal immigration the most? Legal immigrants do. And they're absolutely furious. And why shouldn't they be? They followed the law, waited the time, did the paperwork, and paid the fine. Meanwhile, these illegals broke the law and get a free ride.
CNN data analyst sees tremendous 40-point shift among immigrants to GOP on the issue of border security and ICE enforcement. Yes, indeed, my friends, it just so happens that almost all of the people who are complaining are white liberal women.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
Democrats, that's called being on the right side of history.
Well, that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically about Donald Trump?
Yeah. So, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this. Trump's vote share in presidential election among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this. In 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters. And Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration and into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we're talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally.
Wow, it took them only 10 years to figure out that not all immigrants are illegal, and that the people who come here legally, they tend to be successful. They tend to work really, really hard. You know, what's fascinating is when you look at Filipino and Nigerian immigrants to the United States who come here legally, they have very high salaries. Yeah. Hardworking people who did everything right to come to this country, they believe in it. Or as Serge was talking about before the show, South African refugees enter the country waving the American flag. Yeah. Actual American citizens living in California wave the Mexican flag.
I'm studying abroad from Italy for this semester. In Europe, we are having a big problem with illegal immigration. People are coming, they don't respect our laws, they're women stabbing. It's dangerous to go around. So I don't understand when people come here to talk to you, liberals, saying that they want to welcome them, because you don't know who is entering in your country.
Amen. And I'll tell you, we need more legal immigrants like you in this country. I'll tell you what.
And it makes me upset that for me it's difficult. I'm respecting the law. I'm here if I have to be here legally, I'm going to go back to Italy because I cannot work. And it makes me upset seeing someone that comes here illegally and does whatever he wants.
Another fact that's appalling to me is these illegals can actually vote in our federal and state elections, which is not only a criminal act, but a huge middle finger for those of us who follow the law and contribute to society.
What about the political nature of this? Democrats bring in non-citizens, they get counted in the census, they get extra congressional seats, extra votes in the Electoral College. That is a major point of this conflict right now. I'm curious if anything like that existed in other countries.
It is a violation of law as an illegal immigrant to vote in federal elections. However, states are still allowing for illegal immigrants to register to vote. The SAVE Act, in short, would require states to require proof of citizenship when an individual registers to vote. It would also require that states go into their voter rolls and clean their voter rolls of any individual that they have identified as being illegally present in the United States. We've seen states, Texas in particular, Virginia in particular, Georgia, have all come out recently and said, we've actually identified illegal immigrants that have been registered to vote in our states. Texas alone removed over 1 million people from their voter rolls recently who were illegal immigrants who had registered to vote. Democrats have said this is not a problem. There's nothing to see here. It's already illegal to vote if you are an illegal immigrant.
3 times he said, look, I'm an expert on electoral law in the state of Illinois. You have to prove you're a citizen of the country in order to register to vote. Is that true?
That is false. Anyone who studies this issue knows there are only 4 states where the laws require you to provide proof of citizenship when you register to vote. And those states are Kansas, Arizona, Alabama, and Georgia. And of those 4, only Kansas and Arizona have fully implemented the law. The other 2 states are in the process of starting to implement it.
So just to be clear, what you do need in every state is a government ID, a universally recognized ID. And that's the one thing that's kind of hard for illegal aliens to get because they're not supposed to be here. So when government gives them an ID that is sufficient for voter registration, how are they not abetting voter fraud?
Well, it is absolutely abetting voter fraud. And, you know, the amazing thing is, of course, in the other 46 states, you don't need to provide proof of citizenship. All you need to do is check a box that says, I am a U.S. citizen. And we have found hundreds of cases all over the country. We've had expert witnesses look at Kansas, and it could be as high as 18,000 aliens on our voter rolls. In other states, it's probably in the 6 figures or more. But the point is, people are doing this all the time, sometimes intentionally, sometimes the non-citizens are doing it unintentionally. They can't even read what it is they've just signed, or they didn't pay attention to it. And then they start getting mail from the candidates saying, hey, you're a registered voter. Don't forget to vote for me, and don't forget to vote on August 7th or whatever the date is. So if they're registering and they're voting.
But why wouldn't that make a difference in elections? I mean, clearly the Democratic Party is abetting this. They're doing this on purpose. They're printing these IDs at government expense, public expense, giving them to illegals and letting them register to vote. I mean, why is this not an electoral strategy? It looks like that.
It certainly looks that way. And it does seem that many in the Democrat Party, hopefully not all, seem to think that it's okay if aliens vote. And yeah, maybe they shouldn't be, but heck, it helps the Democrat Party anyway. Some of them have talked like that, and I think it's appalling. Look, only Americans are allowed to vote in these elections. You win or lose by persuading Americans that your policies are right.
Another common emotional argument I hear illegal immigrant sympathizers try to promote is that it's somehow okay to break the law because they are fleeing a bad situation. They will also try to say that it's mostly just women and children, yet another lie, because actually it's mostly military-aged men coming into our country. We are being invaded. People don't seem to understand that America is one of the most lenient countries in the world on deportation. Most other countries punish people for breaking their immigration laws, even going as far as to torture and kill them. Here in America, if you aren't caught, you pretty much get to stay. And when you do get caught, you're arrested and deported back to where you came from. That's it. No punishment whatsoever. The current president has even went as far as to give free cash payments and a free plane ticket to anywhere around the world for those who self-report and admit their illegal status. America is not harsh. We are not racist. We just want to take care of our own country just like everybody else. It's so crazy to me that people still try to defend this and still won't admit that it's legitimately an invasion.
Sandra, this is a tragic story. Jimmy Friesenhahn, father of a 5-month-old girl and a 14-year Marine Corps veteran, fighting for his life now after he was allegedly shot by an illegal alien who's a multiple criminal offender.
Jose Ibarra brutally stabbed 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley to death and was convicted on all 10 counts of murder.
Rachel Marin was dragged from a hiking trail in Maryland where she was raped and murdered. Able to track the suspect, 23-year-old Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hernandez allegedly has ties to the notorious MS-13 gang and entered the country illegally in February of last year.
Year-old daughter who was killed by an illegal migrant back in 2014. So Chris Odette, he sat exclusively with Fox. He says he dropped off his 13-year-old daughter Krisha at a sleepover. That was the last time he would see her. Rockwell police say Krisha was crossing the street, not a crosswalk, when she was struck and killed. The driver, Ramiro Guevara, an illegal migrant from Mexico. According to ICE, Border Patrol encountered him twice before Krisha's death. He was also wanted at the time for driving without a license and speeding. Just 15 months earlier, Odette lost his wife to breast cancer. He says he made a promise to his wife to always protect their daughter.
I lost my entire family in the span of 15 months to a disease that couldn't be prevented, and then to a crime that was 100% preventable.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, first of all. He was murdered in 2018 by an illegal criminal alien that was arrested 2 days prior. And because of the sanctuary city laws, he was released and shot and murdered by this criminal.
So he was, this guy's name is Gustavo Garcia. He was arrested on a drug charge, held in jail for about 10 hours. Then he was responsible for several shootings, 2 other murders, carjackings, multiple high-speed chases. So this guy's a true menace. He's hell on earth, and he's still here, and your brother isn't.
In candor, I'm glad to hear it. Let me ask you about a young man from my state. This is Travis Wolf. He was 12 years old when he was killed just over a year ago by an illegal migrant who mowed him down, and I choose my words carefully, mowed him down in a motor vehicle, hit him head on, doing 75 and a 40, killed him. Others were severely injured. Just yesterday, a witness sitting where you are sitting today told this committee that migrant crime is, and I quote, not an actual concern. Not an actual concern.
Friends and family will be saying their goodbyes to 16-year-old Lisbeth Medina, who was killed in her Edna apartment where she lived with her mother. Now, the funeral is today, and tomorrow there will be a mass and a burial service. The former cheerleader was found dead in a bathtub last week. On Sunday, 23-year-old Rafael Romero was arrested and charged with capital murder. A preliminary autopsy report revealed that Medina was stabbed to death. Edna police say that Romero is from Mexico and living in the U.S. on an expired visa.
It was November 2021. A fiery collision on an Orange County freeway. A young couple dead, and the driver who crashed into them, a twice-deported illegal alien from Mexico with multiple felonies, in custody for being drunk, high, and speeding at nearly 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, so there's no invasion going on. Huh. These people and thousands more wouldn't be dead right now if these illegals were not here. An illegal immigrant can be deported, but they can still come back later. Somebody killed by an illegal immigrant can never come back because they are dead. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. I feel like I've thoroughly went through the most important arguments around this topic, and I need no further show you how disgusting, how anti-biblical this idea is, and that it's okay for somebody to break the law and screw so many people over in the process and think they have any rights to say or do anything in a nation to which they do not belong. Just last year, over 17,000 illegals were arrested on multiple convictions of 1 or more crimes, on top of the crime of already entering the country illegally. This has become such a leftist propaganda campaign that there is almost no sympathy for the victims and millions of other people affected by illegal immigration. If this is such an important issue for you, I ask you to harbor an immigrant in your own home. Don't be a hypocrite and practice what you're preaching, basically. Until we can help our own people, I don't want anyone here to say we should allow these people in and help them first over our own people. Send this video to anybody that still thinks immigration is a right and not a privilege. Isaiah 1 verse 17. Learn to do what is right, promote justice, give the oppressed reason to celebrate. Thanks for watching, guys, and just remember, heaven has a border and strict immigration policies. Hell, on the other hand, has open borders. God bless you guys. See you in the next video.